Hey folks, Matt Easton here, scholagladiatoria. So we're going to look at a little exercise here that hopefully if you're cooped up, whether you have a garden or if you're trapped indoors, you can do this exercise regardless of either of those circumstances. Obviously I'm lucky enough to have a garden and I'm lucky enough to have a stick there really just as an indicator target. But note, for this exercise we're not going to be hitting the stick because I recognise that lots of you don't necessarily have a stick to stick in the ground or a tree or whatever. You might be stuck inside, so it's going to be a non-contact drill. And really what we're concentrating on looking at is a particular way of cutting and a particular way of flowing from one cut to another cut, which could be a cut followed by another cut, or could be a feint, in other words a fake or a ruse, to draw someone's defence to one place and then a cut to another area. And this is a specific way of cutting that relates to the work of John Musgrave Waite. John Musgrave Waite, as anyone who knows my material or looks at my research stuff will know, is a guy who was in the 2nd Life Guards, drill instructor, and he went on to become a private fencing instructor and was most famous for sabre, bayonet and also the sword feats, that is cutting things impressively. So what we're going to look at here is John Musgrave's way of cutting. Now, the first thing to say about John Musgrave Waite's way of cutting with the sabre is that he doesn't move the sword in exactly the same way as most other people at his time. So generally speaking, within John Musgrave Waite's time, the sword generally moves in a circle known as a moulinet, either from the wrist, if we're looking at, for example, British or French treatises, or Hungarian, okay, either from the wrist like this, or if you look at Rodelli school of Italian stuff. In fact, the early Italian stuff, or the Parisi, for example, Italian stuff cuts from the wrist as well. But if we're looking at the Rodelli and some of the later Italian stuff, then they do the moulinet from the elbow. And this is for all cuts. So, for example, if I just face you, you've got cut 1, cut 2, cut 3, cut 4, cut 5, cut 6. Okay, and there is a 7 and an 8 as well, but we won't worry about those. If I was doing it in Rodelli fashion, then this would be cutting from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the elbow. Okay, now when you move the sword in a circular motion, this gives it a momentum and gives it force. But Waite is very specific in one thing, and that is that you should not at all draw the hand back. So not like Rodelli, you shouldn't draw the hand back when you make the moulinet. Okay, so for example, if I was going to cut, and if you watch most people sparring today with sabres, what they'll do when they give a moulinet is they'll bring the hand back a bit before they cut. Okay, so they'll do this very often to give the sword more force and more effect, and I must admit I do this myself very often in sabre. But this is not what Waite wants you to do. Waite wants you to not let the hand come back from where it is. So if you perform a cut, say for example from tierce, from this guard in a cut, everything should be forward with the lunge. Now let's just talk briefly about the lunge. So I move backwards a little bit so that you can see me. The lunge, for anybody who doesn't know, is simply a motion whereby you come from position number 2 to position number 3. In position number 3, your back foot has stayed flat and where it was. The front foot has extended out. The back leg should be straight and you should be reaching forward. In Waite and most British sources, the body should be upright. Okay, if we look at some, to move backwards, some a bit more in centre frame. If you look at some Italian treatises, for example, most of the Rodelli stuff, they cut from the elbow and they also would lean the body forward. This lean forward of the body is criticised in British and French sources, certainly in British sources, and the kind of Anglo-French way of making the lunge will be with the body and chin upright. So much so that British sources actually say to keep the chin up, to keep the breast back. So I've relocated the microphone now to the top of my stick, so I very much don't want to hit the stick. I'm actually going to be aiming just over the stick, so at chest and head height, and we're going to first of all look at Waite's method of cutting from high second, or his engaging guard, okay, which is here. Okay, so the legs are in position 2, the weight is equal, the hand is at the height of the shoulder and the blade is going diagonally downwards. Now from there we're going to cut number 1. Now I want to be at the distance whereby with one lunge I'll be overlying the target with my centre of percussion. Okay, so from here, bam, hit and recover again. Hit, recover, hit, recover. Now you'll notice the first thing that starts to happen when I start forming a cut is the hand starts to move first as the arm extends. The arm's already quite extended, but the elbow is a little bit bent here, such that when I start to redirect the sword to the target, the arm's extending out and should land at the same time as the lunge. Okay, so you want to time the sword movement, the rotation, and the extension of the arm and the pushing of the rear leg all together, so they should land at about the same time. But you lead with the weapon. You present the threat with the weapon first. Okay, so let's break that down into slow-mo. Sword starts to move, arm extends, leg pushes forward. Okay, bam, and back a bit. Okay, so I'm moving my hand a little bit backwards there. What I want you to focus on is just moving forward. So you commonly see when people are doing these drills them bring their hand back like here before they move forwards, and this telegraphs the opponent, and it also enables them to give a stop cut to your arm potentially. Okay, so from the moment that you commence the cut, everything should be forward, bam, straight forward. Even if it's less powerful, yes, it would be more powerful to do this and chop through the target, and that has its time and place, but it is more telegraphed, and it does leave you more open to stop cuts and stop thrusts. So from here, forward, forward, forward. Okay, good, just practice that in your own time. What we're going to look at now is redirecting the sword with all of the motion being forwards. Okay, so we're going to look at a 1-2. That is, from here, we're going to look like we're going to do a cut 1, but we're not going to put the foot in there. We're going to bring the sword to here, then we're going to redirect to here with the lunge. So this is a feint. That is, the sword looks like it's going to go to a 1, but then it actually comes through with a 2, and you save the lunge for the cut number 2. Okay, so 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so you can see the lunge is only with the real attack, the feint is only done with the motion of the sword. Now, I want you to absolutely focus on all of your motion of the hand and of the sword being forwards, none of it being backwards. So, forwards, forwards. Once more. Forwards, forwards. Forwards, forwards. Forwards, forwards. Okay, so you can see there, when you start to make the cut, the hand's moving forwards, stays there, redirect, moves forwards. So it's not the most powerful kind of cut, but it leaves the minimum possible chance of the opponent being able to intercept that motion. Okay, let's go again. Forwards, forwards. Forwards, forwards. 1, 2. Okay, let's try a little bit quicker now. Good, okay. And remember the recovery. With the lunge, you don't want to overcommit, you don't want to overbalance, you want to stay upright such that you can quickly get back again. Also, of course, we've just looked there at the 1-2, and you can do this with any of the cuts. So for example, you could do from high second, you could do a 1 feint and then actually a 3. This is actually more difficult because to get the 3 you usually have to flex the elbow a little bit to get the angle. But really, just to say that you could do this from any of the cuts. So you could feint with a 2, for example, and then actually come round with the one. But the whole point is that the hand and the sword should only be moving forwards from the minute that you begin. So forwards, forwards. Show that from the side. Feint, cut. Okay? Feint, cut. Feint, cut. Okay? Cool. Okay, go for it, give it a try. Thanks for watching. Practice that. Try and think about the motion just being forwards and not bringing the hand back when you perform the moulinet. This is very specific to Waite's system. Cheers for watching. See you soon.